Oh boy, oh boy, oh boy, am I excited about this one. Diversification, the key ingredients of financial innovation. That is what's coming up right now. Raj Hayer is a force of nature. She is the CEO of Tiny Box Academy. And with over 30 years of experience across finance, tech, leadership, Raj is all about empowering people and companies make big changes, whether it's through social leadership or diversity in the workplace. Plus, she's a TED speaker and a coach with the top executives. Now, I really want you all to lean into this one and get ready for some really special insights on how to thrive in today's fast-paced business world. It is my honor to welcome Raj. Thank you so much for being here.
Hi, thanks, Chris.
And lead us the way.
Great. Thank you so much. Hello, everyone. How are we today? With that introduction, I have to say, I'm going to go forward a little. Here we go. So with that introduction, hopefully you're not disappointed now that I'm on the stage. But you might already be thinking, oh boy, another woman talking about diversity. What's this got to do with finance? What's this got to do with expenses? What's it got to do with financial innovation? Well, let's see if I can convince you that not only does diversity include all of us, but inclusive innovation is a possibility for your organization. So my name is Raj Hayer. I'm the founder of Tiny Box Academy, a creative think tank for innovation. And let's start with the obvious. Why not? So when you look at me, what do you see? First, maybe you see that I'm a woman, right? So there might be some gender stereotypes. Then maybe you see I'm a woman of color, Indian heritage, and there might be some cultural stereotypes. And even people who are from India sometimes make assumptions based on what I look like. And they'll talk to me in another language, and I don't understand them because I was born in England. Maybe next you see I'm a slightly more mature person, so there might be some generational stereotypes. What could I know about technology as an almost 50-year-old woman? I currently live in Germany, so there's a few immigrant stereotypes there. The fact is, it's instinctive. We all label, and we do it almost immediately, whether it's good or bad, based on the information and the experiences we've collected over our lifetimes. This is the entry point for all of our interactions. So let's look at what you might not know about me by just looking at me. I'm British and I'm Canadian, so I have cultural and geographical diversity and understand those two markets very well since most of my financial experience was in Canada. I have had 2 major surgeries. At 19, I had metal plates put in my head from a car accident, and at 23, I had heart surgery, open heart surgery, because I had a heart aneurysm. So what does this mean? It means I almost died twice, which means I've built resilience and adaptability. I'm decisive in my decision making. I can take risks. I lead change and transformation because I've been through change and transformation. My Myers-Briggs, or 16 personalities type, is INFJ, which means I prefer autonomy when I'm working. I need to have the decision-making capability. I don't like too much red tape or politics, so I tend to distance myself, and I don't believe in hierarchy, which is probably why I don't work in corporations. My global executive MBA means I've studied in several markets around the world. A PMP qualification means I've led multi-million-dollar projects. My MSA qualification means I understand individuals' professional preferences, but you wouldn't know any of that just looking at me. How much do you know about the individuals on your team? Are you leveraging them as well as you could be? As Chris mentioned, I've got 30 years of experience in management, 15 in the financial services industry, and during my journey, I've also experienced different levels of leadership and management. As an example, in Canada, I launched the National Mystery Shop program. Now, this was going to influence the products we developed, the services that we were giving, and I wanted to include every single branch across Canada. Now, if you know Canada, that's a vast amount of space. We wanted to shop even the people who were 2,000 miles away. The reason is I wanted people to feel included. It was as simple as that. And we got feedback that some of these remote places, they actually felt like they were part of the bank for the first time because we included them. And at the time, my leaders liked stand-up meetings every Monday. So, and I love this concept, it's 10 minutes, you stand up, and the team talks about the challenges they've got in their projects. Now, During one of these meetings, we realized that with a slight adjustment, we could save $2 million just by using the same delivery platform for our branches. That's how effective it was. Then I went from creative, innovative work, total autonomy to achieve the objective and winning awards internally and externally to a role where I was clear I was the diversity hire. I was told I'd be launching a new stakeholder program. But instead of creating change or transformation, I sat in a corner and I adjusted PowerPoint presentations. Was I underutilized? Yes, definitely. But how long do you think I stayed in that job? And now I'm stuck. Thank you. Talent acquisition costs in financial services can go up to $28,000 per hire. Talent engagement can increase retention and reduce attrition. And another example is when I worked in real estate secured lending, we realized that a lot of people were being turned down for mortgages because the credit bureau data didn't match the data they'd given us in the application. A lot of consumers don't know their credit bureau history. So we decided, hey, we'll pop that data right into the application, then they just have to verify it, and we improve our instant adjudication and instant mortgage approvals. Now, technology was the easy part. Technology often is the easy part, but innovation is not just about technology. It's about solving the real problems. And the barriers in this case were the people. I had stakeholders in the room from legal, regulation, credit bureau reps, product managers, marketing, communications, sales, and more and more and more. But they were not the most relevant people to the solution. We needed the frontline staff who were going to use the application in the room as we were designing it. And by doing that, we realized actually it wasn't just about the credit bureau data. It was about taking a 14-screen application process down to 4 and simplifying the process for them so that they could even have transparency and turn the screen to their customers. And this is the problem. Sometimes we don't have the right people in the room, or we have the right people in the room and we're not using them. You have all the solutions that you need in your team, but if you're not leveraging them, you're not using them. And when this happens, when they're not feeling engaged, they're not going to innovate. In fact, they can even become barriers to the innovation and potentially add financial risk to your projects later on. So, the core component of any change, transformation, or innovation, it's the people. And we want you to leverage the diversity in your team so you can develop innovative products. So what are the key ingredients for success in this? Well, I believe they're the people and the synergy of their ideas based on their diversity. So how do we tap into that? Well, first, the leadership. We need to talk about leadership, and we're going to talk about that first. Then second, it's about how do you unleash that innovation in your teams. But before we get to that, we have some challenges when it comes to the financial industry. There's a reason we don't have much diversity in finance. First, it comes down to a lack of trust we have in the financial industry and its leaders. Global average for trust fell by 5% year over year, making financial services among the least trusted sectors on the planet, tying with the fashion industry. And we barely beat social media by like this much. Trust in banks has always been low due to lack of transparency, but what we're surprising here is that we're adding digital components and people aren't trusting us in the digital areas either. Trust in digital payments is only 58%. Wealth management advisory online, only 42%. Do stakeholders trust you as a leader? Do they trust your company? Second, of course, we're being disrupted at an alarming rate, and we are not keeping up. Over 28% of traditional banking services are expected to be disrupted in the next 4 years. And part of that stems from the feeling that people do not think that financial services serve them, that they serve the needs of a few, but not all. 62% of stakeholders believe financial services weren't designed for them. Could it be because they weren't in the room when the design was taking place? And 53% don't believe in a shared vision, which means that diverse talent is not interested in working in finance either. So you got your work cut out for you. I believe that leaders and employees can play a critical part in changing that story and that narrative and gain back trust through social leadership. Social leadership is the currency of trust. It is the core of all my executive coaching. Do your stakeholders trust you? It is not only about leading diverse teams, but attracting talent for future workforce needs. And secondly, unlocking innovation through diversity. I call it inclusive innovation. That means you're developing and implementing ideas, services, products that ensure participation and benefits for all. The participation principle, those that are affected by the solution have to be part of the conversation. They've got to be in the room. And once you have acquired that talented workforce, don't let them languish, because they are the not-so-secret ingredient. But before we get into that, let's define diversity, because what do I mean when I say it's all of us? This is where the financial principle of diversification comes into play. It's how we allocate our capital, right? To reduce risk in our financial portfolio. Don't put all your eggs in one basket. Well, these same principles apply to our workforce, and diversifying them will help you reduce your risk. If you diversify your people portfolio, you can potentially stem the effects of demographic risks and returns by tapping into global talent pools. However, just like a financial portfolio, it's got to be managed effectively. And that's through a culture that fosters collaboration and inclusion. But which diversity counts, right, Raj? What diversity am I looking at? Well, anything that makes you think differently. I'm going to introduce you to a very simplified diversity map. And the fact that it's not simple shows you that you can't simplify diversity. And it effectively illustrates, though, what's visible and what's invisible. Now, I always go with the idea of human first. If we think of every human being as an individual, then all the rest of the diversity can fall into place, but we'll always treat that person with respect and kindness. And then we can bring them in, gain buy-in, gain trust. But let's look at the diversity factors. So we tend to focus on what's visible, like we did earlier. So of course, most obvious, woman or man, white, brown or black, young or old. And then the next level is secondary visible factors. Education, are you married or single? Are you a parent? Again, the most accessible information. What we often miss is everything else. How we operate, how we learn, how we problem solve, how we make decisions. Simple things like personality diversity can impact your inclusivity and innovation. For instance, introversion versus extroversion. It's a very common one. And a trend that took the business world by storm about a decade ago, or maybe 15 years ago, I'm a bit old, was open workspaces, right? No assigned desk, no walls, not even cubicles, and enforced coffee breaks to network with your peers. In other words, my worst nightmare. I'm an introvert. If I don't have a safe place to go to every day, and in uninterrupted time, so I don't want to take coffee breaks all the time, then it throws me off my game. I can't innovate. How can you innovate when you're not feeling comfortable in your own work environment? What about convergent and divergent thinking? Convergent thinking is the process of finding a single solution to the problem. Divergent thinking it involves generating multiple diverse ideas and lots of solutions to the given problem. Now imagine that frustration. If there you are trying to get to a solution and the person you're talking to is just talking about a million different ideas that don't even seem related to the solution you're talking about. Well, can you imagine how frustrating that would be for both of you? Well, the magic is in meeting halfway, understanding each other, finding the ideas that actually could push you forward. This is how you leverage this unique ability to generate innovative solutions. Culture is the next level, and that can include how we handle conflicts, our competitive drivers, time management skills, etc. Do you know your teammates' working styles? Are you leading them in the correct way if you're a leader? We all process energy and operate differently in different work environments. And if we don't understand that, then we can't unlock inclusive innovation. An organization includes hierarchy, industry, and divisions. And the point is, it goes on and on and on. Diversity is complex. It's not easy. If it was, everyone would be doing it. It requires leaders who want to understand the human first. They want to ensure that they're motivating people the right way, giving them the purpose that they're looking for in their work. Because if leading was easy, then everyone would be doing it. And we don't have time to deep dive into all of the diversity, so we'll take a moment for one of the most obvious, visible ones, gender diversity. So if we look at risk, You know, the assumption is in the stereotypes that men are sometimes aggressive when it comes to pursuing growth opportunities, right? High risk, high return. And women are generally risk averse, leading to a more thoughtful approach, which can be needed in certain economic situations. You can see how a balance between the two might actually be the most effective diversification plan. For collaboration, men may emphasize efficiency, competitive growth, metrics, performance. Women are known for fostering more collaborative environments, open communication, employee welfare, customer retention. But what's needed when? Different types are needed, different types of collaboration are needed in different parts of the organization, in certain projects. So they could both be useful, you just have to understand where. And what about expense management? Well, men might emphasize immediate return on investment, short-term gains, cost-cutting measures, and women might focus on strategies for long-term sustainability, prioritizing ethical spending, gender pay equity, employee satisfaction, which are all important factors for the upcoming generation of talent. The point is we need both perspectives. One is not better than the other. Now you might be asking, well, how much of a difference does this diversity actually make? Well, I like to refer to it as the diversity dividend. Qualitatively, we cannot create solutions if we don't have the people in the room. We all know the seatbelt example. Seatbelts were designed by men, for men, and therefore a lot of women get injured in cars. What you might not know is that we are still not required to use female test dummies when we're testing cars. It's still only male test dummies, which means that though women get into accidents less, they are 73% more likely to be injured. But qualitatively, the numbers don't lie. It's higher return on sales, it's higher operating margin, it's higher profit, higher earnings per share, higher ROI. I mean, do I need to go on? There's so many studies illustrating the economic benefit of inclusion initiatives. Diversity and inclusion are a superpower, right? They accelerate financial growth. They consistently outperform the industry median, yet we still don't implement talent attraction initiatives or change our culture to maximize on this. So these were only a few diversity factors. Just imagine if we leveraged all diversity factors. So if we know this, if we know that managing diversity and inclusion effectively can result in these kind of results, then how can we achieve them? Well, we need to attract the talent and we need to engage the talent. So let's start with leadership first in attracting talent, because as some of you may be aware, by 2050, Europe will have a deficit of 30 million working age adults. The talent pipeline is in jeopardy. So when I'm asked, what do social networks and community influence have to do with leadership? Well, my response is everything. It's where the stakeholders and the talent are, and shouldn't you be where the stakeholders and the talent are? Trust is the foundation of influence, and if you're not there, the narrative is happening without you, for your company, for your competitors, for your clients, for your employees. You have to be there. Social media is a communication tool that allows you to build relationships throughout your entire stakeholder ecosystem. 82% of talent on LinkedIn, 82% of talent search LinkedIn before considering a job. And yes, brand matters, but actually they're looking at your leaders and your employees. They want to know about the culture. They want to know what you care about, what you stand for, what your values are. Every leader can use their influence to power the brand. So how are you using it to influence and attract talent? Of course, a visibly diverse leadership team sends a strong signal about the company's commitment to inclusion, which is important for attracting talent. And let's be honest, how attractive are you? What are you promising your talent? Are your competitors doing a better job out there than you are? Something to consider, because bad reputation can reduce your talent recruitment by 75%. So what are you doing to attract that talent? Well, this is where social leadership can help you. First, know what you value and represent that. Social representation are your ideals, they are your values. They orient how you operate with stakeholders. Stakeholders do care what you believe. 60% of people choose a place to work based on the alignment to beliefs and values. 64% invest in companies based on alignment to their values and their beliefs. But they can't know what you believe if you're not sharing it. So when your values align clearly with your company's activities, it provides a kind of transparency that will set you apart. Here is a leader who shares his values. His name is Dan Price, CEO of Gravity Payments. He determined that a person's financial stability or situation should not have any bearing on how they perform at work. So what did he do? He tried to remove the threat of socioeconomic diversity. He raised his firm's minimum salary in 2015 to $70,000 by slashing his own salary of $1.1 million to make it happen. So what happened? His revenue grew by 300% over a 6-year period. During the pandemic, his staff offered to take pay cuts so that he wouldn't have to lay anybody off. They never have to post for a job. They get 300 applicants every single position through referral alone. And he has a 90% employee retention rate in an industry where the average is 68%. And he still continues to post about his values and beliefs, calling out other leaders to do the same. Second, engage and build influence. Sharing online makes you feel like a real person. And people follow people. So make your brand an attractive place to work, because you have to be there to have a voice. Social participation is the name of the game, and you have to participate to play. 81% of stakeholders believe leadership should be personally visible. Attracting talent and clients is a crucial part of company success. Plus, who doesn't want to attract good people and good colleagues that they actually want to work with? This is Dropbox. They're a digital content sharing and hosting platform. They use their brand channel to highlight employees. So employees go online and they post something and they use the LinkedIn hashtag Life Inside Dropbox. And then the brand will frequently repost and share those employees' stories and content. Not only does this increase the influence of the company culture inside the company, but it also influences external perception because it shows that they value their employees. More than that, their employees become brand advocates, increasing employee attraction, engagement, and retention. And last but not least, this is where innovation lives. Think about the bigger picture. What do you care about in this world? Economic growth, environmental impact, gender equality, social responsibility is a customer expectation now. 60% of stakeholders expect leaders to be visible and talking publicly on societal issues. And this is how you make it impactful. The more voices we have working towards the big goals, the more change we can make overall. When I was at this one bank in Canada, they had a wonderful initiative called Habitat for Humanity. Having been without a home for a year when I was a teenager, this was an initiative that checked all the boxes: values and beliefs, participation in the community, and social responsibility, because we were doing something good. It hit all the boxes. And because our whole team did it, the team bonding created trust, and we were doing something good, so we felt good. Now, I must confess that this is the only time that I've put up drywall, and for future homeowners, I think I should stick to painting. But in the meantime, this bank still posts about all the great things they do in the community, all the cleanup they do, all this great Habitat for Humanity, JDRF bike rides. They still post about it because now they have a platform to share the good things that they're doing, and their employees do too. The benefit of embracing social leadership is that you can create cohesion across your brand and network with shared values, ideas, practices, communicating in real time where your stakeholders are, and being part of a global community responsible for societal issues. Social leadership is now a core business function, and it creates one brand vision, but you have to be there to have the conversation and be part of the narrative. So now that you've attracted all that great talent, you've got to inspire them, right? Trust and integrity. Inclusion innovation can help us create inclusive solutions. It's diversity at its core. Inclusive innovation can change the world. So how can we consciously and intentionally create engagement and innovate? Well, let's face it, we're all in the same boat. We're all going to see the same challenges. But if your employees don't feel like they're part of the team and that you guys are on the same level and that they are valued, they are going to jump ship. Engaging diversity is the key to meaningful innovation. Inclusivity can set the stage for lasting innovation. Now, firms that demonstrate inclusivity are likely to retain their employees, especially if they feel that their experiences and perspectives are valued. When we want to get fit, we might hire a personal coach, right? We hire a personal coach. It's not because we don't know how to work out or that we need to work out. We need the accountability. We need an accountability partner to make sure we show up at the gym and do it. Well, that's what quotas are. Diversity quotas are also just accountability. But let me just preface that by saying it is a shift in company culture that does far more to leverage diversity than just meeting quotas. Promoting diversity without creating an inclusive environment diminishes your long-term success. Again, when Google was creating those open workspaces and we had ping pong tables and couches and napping pods and everyone wanted to be Google, right? Cutting edge, innovative. So what did they do? They built the open workspaces. What do you think happened? Absolutely nothing. Without the trust and the culture that supports this kind of creativity and this kind of dynamic, the rest is useless. So use talent diversity and leverage their unique lens. For instance, is this dog sitting, standing, or lying down? The answer changes depending on which piece of the picture or lens you use. So consider the whole picture and include every voice. Include stakeholders in the conversations, or risk designing products that only work for a select few of the fraction of the users, missing out on a full spectrum of user needs and potential markets. So I've pulled out a couple of examples for you, a couple of use cases. Launched in China, Ant Financial Sesame Credit developed an innovative credit scoring system. What they did was they used social media activity and online buying behavior to assess creditworthiness. In their team, they included data scientists, behavioral psychologists, financial experts, and local market specialists. Approximately 98% of their credit balances were underwritten by other parties, and the delinquency rate of these loans have been historically low at 1.5%. This innovation has helped provide financial services to millions of Chinese consumers who lacked traditional credit histories. Using diversity to improve problem identification and to solve the right problem can be effective. A diverse workforce allows you to better connect with and serve a diverse client base. Our educated workers are coming up through fast expanding markets, 70% plus from Brazil, India, China, Africa. Unsurprisingly, this is where financial inclusion is also needed and prominent. M-Pesa, launched in Kenya in 2007, created a mobile banking system. The team included technologists from Vodafone, anthropologists who studied Kenyan money transfer habits, local financial experts from Safaricom. Now, Safaricom has a 50-50 ratio of men to women. They are reaching 40% of female representation in management next year. Well, they've increased year over year 19.5%. They have 34 million active users in Kenya, 66 million in Africa, and they have with 21 billion transactions processed. But what's most impressive is that women finally received money directly into their wallets, giving them independence, security, and certainty. Broadening your market understanding helps serve diverse markets better. Improved representation in your team leads to innovative solutions for different demographics. Launched in 1968, MSCI decided in 2020, when the pandemic hit, to create a diverse by design teams, a hybrid work model. The initiative was led by Tia Counts, Chief Responsibility and Chief Diversity Officer, and they included employees from all demographics, all roles, and all levels. And while correlation doesn't always equal causation, the results after they implemented this program was staggering. So from 2020 to 2023, revenue grew by approximately 63% to 2.5 billion. Net income doubled to 1.15 billion. But we shouldn't need a pandemic to create diverse by design teams, should we? Simply meeting employees where they are can help. For instance, Dell implemented a connected workplace program in 2009. Their transformation enables staff to work anywhere at any time. Now think about that. They get to choose both where they work and when they work. So they can plan their workday around their life rather than their life around their workday. And they made sure they maintained team collaboration, efficiency, strong connections, and communication through the process, which increased productivity, decreased their office space costs, IT costs, and the talent acquisition went up, because who doesn't want to work for a company that allows you to live your life? Diverse teams are often more adaptable to change, means they have quicker responses to market shifts or things like a pandemic. Now, I did a study 5 years ago for an enterprise solutions management company in London. And I was told before I started, there's one guy and he doesn't quite fit. He doesn't come out for a drink after work. He participate on Yammer, their social media tool. He's just not a team player, yeah? Well, it turns out they were engaged in a bit of similarity bias. And he was the only introvert out of 279 individuals in that company. The assumption was that extroversion is good for sales. That's why they hired people who were extroverted, right? It's people like them. He didn't fit because he had different preferences. His energy was depleted by engaging with people the whole day. He needed to go home and rest. But here's what was surprising. In the personality data, I compared it to every other metric that they had in the company, including revenue. He had the best revenue numbers of anybody in that company and the longest client retention. Yet extroversion can help with quick sales and quick connections. It's sometimes better to have introversion for long-term relationships, client relationships. So don't be quick to dismiss someone just because they don't fit. Learn why, and then see how they can help you change your behaviors. If you're seeking to increase sales and revenue, consider this. 60% of sales teams surveyed attributed increased sales to having a diverse and inclusive sales force. Diverse sales teams had 45% more growth in market share. So enhance your decision making by disrupting your thinking. Don't make the same assumptions that you've always made. Look at the data and test your assumptions. And finally, founded in 2000, Mobile Expense created a flexible, globally compliant expense management tool that works across different currencies and financial regulations. Their globally diverse team includes 27 different nationalities, 46% female representation on the team, software developers from multiple countries, an in-house financial compliance team, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. Their app has been downloaded 1.7 million times. They process over 1.9 billion in annual travel expenses, and their expense app saves controllers 65% of time on their processes. But what really sets them apart is their partner landscape. They integrate with the best in the business and complement the offering. Financial innovation is moving to ecosystems, and all stakeholders make up that entire ecosystem. All stakeholders include every level of diversity that we have discussed today. I've given you a lot of information, so let me leave you with this last thought. To build a company, increase profitability, beat the competition, influence success, it takes a lot of ingredients, working together, collaborating, and aiming for the same strategic goal. And that means social leadership to unlock inclusive innovation. Create a portfolio of talent, and then invest in them. An engaged, diverse workforce led by social leaders serving customers globally, that's how you build business success. And to the new talent out there, think about going into finance, because rest assured, we know we need you. We need your ideas, we need your perspective, and we need you to innovate. So every time we all advocate for, interact with, and talk about diversity in finance, we educate the public on the power of representation. So be a voice for diversity. Be where your employees and potential clients are. Leverage every perspective, every voice, because in the end, every voice matters. Thank you for your time and attention. Hi, Chris.
Wow, that was incredible. I don't know about you all, but I am so inspired. Where do I sign up for?
You might need to slow down the speed at some point, but yeah, you can
That was like the storytelling, the pieces. I don't know. I think if you don't get like 100 new emails in your inbox, like where do I sign up?
I'm on LinkedIn. Go for it.
I would definitely connect up there. That was incredible. I mean, we all know if we talk about inspiring leaders.
Yeah.
I've been in my career, if you go back, we've all been there. We've had some some maybe not the best leaders and so forth. But if we turn it and look at maybe some inspirational leaders.
Yeah.
What are some of the leaders that have inspired you?
I mean, one always jumps to mind, to be honest. As soon as I hear that question, people often ask that question. And his name is Daniele Farnaccia, so shout out to him. Mm-hmm. He understood before I even knew that you have to treat every individual like an individual. There is no blanket response to every person. You can't do the same thing for everyone. Pizza Fridays does not work for everyone, right? So he knew that right off the bat, and he'd have an open door policy for people who needed to ask questions all the time. But if you needed autonomy, he gave you the goal and he let you run with it, right? There were two questions, actually, Chris, and they're the ones that stay with me. He'd always ask himself, did my team succeed?
Sure.
Because I succeed if my team succeeds, and we did. We won awards, internal and external. The second was, and this is an interesting one, is do they want to work for me again? Because the fact is that we can often hit those metrics and hit those performance measures. But if your team doesn't want to work for you again, then you failed. Like, you will not get that kind of talent coming along with you on the journey. When you have great leaders, you want to follow them. You want to go where they're going. They'll call you and they'll say, do you want to work for me again? And you're like, yeah, let's do this, right? So he was great. He was fantastic.
I mean, I like that saying, you talk the talk, but you have to be able to walk the walk. And that kind of goes with a lot of sayings. I mean, if we look at some of the, like in your opinion, what are some of the qualities that are essential for like a leader? And we talk about driving diversification, and especially when it comes to the tech industry. What are your thoughts there?
I mean, honestly, this is going to sound really awful, but tech industry is no different than every other industry. It moves a bit faster, but in the end, if a leader doesn't have self-awareness and doesn't know their own working styles and what they need, then it can be disruptive to the rest of the team. So you got to kind of know yourself first. You got to have self-awareness, and you've got to be able to, understand when you need a break and when you need, a certain style of communication, and then understand your individuals on the team. I mean, there's one thing that, we talk about inspiring and giving purpose, and that's true. But trust comes from transparency, right? So during our financial crisis, I was working actually in one of the banks in Canada, and the leadership team had a meeting for every floor at 9 o'clock every day. And even if they had nothing to share, they told us they have nothing to share. So they kept us in the loop. They were completely transparent about what was going on. Look, we don't know, but here's what we do know, And that creates trust. Every employee during that crisis that was in this bank that I worked for bought shares in the bank when it went down, because they believed in their leadership team. So when you ask me, what can you do as a leader? Diversity starts with understanding yourself, and then be transparent to build trust.
I mean, you had that great slide with the boat, and you got to be ready to be able to, and otherwise people are just going to jump ship. If we talk about, let's move over to kind of leadership strategies. And what have you found has been the most effective in bringing the best when it comes to diverse teams?
I mean, it's all about inclusion principles, isn't it? I mean, there's a few different things that I've used and I've instructed other people to use, and that's things like failure sharing, right? We talk right now, Gen Z knows about failures, right? Because I think the cultural acceptance of failure is much higher than it was back when I was coming up, right? But they don't actually think about how much the older generation has to give them. So if you do failure sharing, you actually level the playing field for everybody, because everybody has to share something that they've learned. So therefore, people are more likely to collaborate. It's like the stand-up meeting that I discussed earlier. If you let people talk, I'll give you an example, Chris. I had a leader who thought he was being diverse and that he was bringing everybody in, and he called an all-hands meeting, and I thought, great, we need an all-hands meeting. Let's talk about the challenges. Let's talk about solutions. Let's do it together, right? He talked for 2 hours straight. Nobody else said a word. I'm like, how is this an all-hands meeting? I don't understand what's happening here. But that's the problem, right? Is that we need to almost step back a little as leaders. We need to create the environment, inclusive environment, where people can talk, and then step back a little and let them do the solutioning and trust each other, learn to trust each other as well. So there's a few strategies. Personality workshops, obviously. One I love is start with why workshops, because then you get one purpose statement that the entire team can get behind. So there's a few different strategies. Maybe we don't have time to go into all of them.
But I think the active listening is so important. It's so easy to get caught up in your messaging and maybe take a step back. And I really agree with you there. You mentioned an interesting topic, and especially one group, and we're talking about the Gen Z group. People often categorize them as maybe being lazy. I really don't like to pull everyone over to one side, but what do you think talk about impact of adding more individuals when it comes to Gen Z professionals to your team?
Okay, so I'm going to address two things there. So one is, anyone can be lazy in a role if they're not motivated, engaged, listened to. We're all human beings. We all want to feel like we're valued in some way, right? So I think that Gen Zers just have a different perspective, because when Gen X was coming up, we didn't have the transparency we have now. We didn't have Glassdoor to tell us which company to work for or anything. We only had stay at your job, because that's your job, right? So even if we didn't feel engaged, we'd stay there. Gen Z can jump ship a lot faster. They know what's out there. There's more transparency than ever before, right? And then to the actual question of, do we need them on the teams, or what impact can they have? Let's be honest. who are we designing solutions and products for if not
Yeah.
the next generations? And if they're not in the room, how are you possibly creating a product that they're going to use, right? I mean, and I think the last thing I will say on that is that this goes for Gen Zers too, is that we got to respect everybody's contribution.
Yeah.
The older generation that's in the company have industry and company knowledge that the Gen Zers are never going to have, right? And the Gen Zers have knowledge on technology and trends that the older generation's never going to have.
Yeah.
And if we remove the fear that somebody's taking our job or, you know, that we're getting pushed out or whatever the case is, and like you said, listen to each other. You've both got so much to share, so much value to share, right?
1,000%.
Yeah, so there you go.
Raj, it's been an absolute pleasure. Thank you for sharing all your wisdom, your insights, and your great
you.
storytelling.
Thank you
so much.
All right. Enjoy the rest of the conference.
Thank you. Well, everyone, I hope you thought that was a delight. I absolutely did. Here we go. Next on the agenda, we're learning from billion-dollar projects how to stay in control of big numbers.